Okay, awesome. We're recording.
Alrighty.
Okay, so hi everyone. Welcome back to the Taking Environmental Action Speaker Series. I'm Sophia Peltz, your host and the Sustainability Coordinator for the Berkeley Unified School District, as well as a Climate Corps Fellow. So before we begin, I'm going to give a quick introduction. So the BUSD Sustainability Program has been around since 2018, which is also when we passed our 8-part sustainability plan. So if you'd like to check out more and learn more about what we've been up to, you can go to www.berkeleyschools.net/sustainability. So this speaker series will give students in the larger Berkeley community insight into how Bay Area professionals are making our communities more resilient and how their passion for sustainability has been integrated into their career path. Every month, this speaker series will highlight professionals who are driving solutions to climate change, from business leaders, energy conservation experts, food entrepreneurs, and change makers, who will join us to present their visions, research, and experiences. So I hope you all get inspired by these forward-thinking speakers who are addressing complex problems across a variety of sustainability-related fields. And today I'm so excited to welcome Ilana Ash. Ilana has over 4 years of experience in the energy management industry. A graduate of Cal Poly School of Business, Ilana works as an account executive at Sycerco. Sycerco provides building automation and control technology to improve a facility's HVAC and lighting functionality, energy efficiency, and sustainability. As an account executive, Ilana works directly with customers to understand their needs and goals, develop and oversee projects, and facilitate communication between customers and the project team. There will be a Q&A after our conversation, so feel free to enter your questions in the chat box and we'll answer them at the end. So hi, Ilana. It's great to have you here. I'm really excited to chat
Hi,
with
thank
you
you for
today.
having me. This is exciting.
I'd love to get started by asking you how you got involved in Sycerco and your journey into the field.
Yeah, absolutely. My journey might be different than others. I was a Cal Poly student, as you mentioned earlier, and so my senior year of school, and I had gone to our career fair, and I was walking around. Full transparency, I hadn't done much preparation. I just thought I'd start getting my name out there and seeing what there was to offer. At the time, I was a business student with a concentration in industrial technology. So that was a very broad education. So I didn't really know where I wanted to land at that point. So I'm walking around and I ended up at the Sycerco table and I started chatting with a couple of the people there. It was Derek Eggers, one of the owners of the company, along with two of the then account executives. And so I started talking to them and getting an understanding of what they did. And it got me very excited. I was hoping to find something as a college student, something that would really excite me. And that's just what it did. And so from there, like I said, didn't know much about energy or that kind of stuff. I was really just a business student. So through my next year of college, I started getting more interested into it and looking it up as I was going to then go to Sycerco afterwards. And so then my training there was from the ground up. They sent me out as a technician, shadowing some of our technicians on site with some of our clients. And then from there, I shadowed our account executive and learning what that role looked like. And then I became an account executive myself. So that's really the journey that I took. Probably not the standard for the position that I'm in, just because I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I'm very happy I took the journey I did.
That's so cool that you were able to grow so much in that role, and also that you're still there. So that means you like it.
I do. Yes. I remember when I first started, people were asking me, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I was like, I'm still figuring it out. And so now, because I was in college and I knew where I was going, but I had no idea what the role was going to be.
Mm.
Um, and I'm so glad that it ended up the way I did, just because especially today people are jumping around between companies a lot these days, and I found a place that I want to be at, so it's cool.
Amazing. Well, now that we're talking about Sycerco, and I said a little bit in your bio when I talked about when I introduced you, but I'm wondering if you could tell us what Sycerco is, who they are, kind of give us a little bit more of a bit of a more introduction to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sycerco, as you said, is an energy management company, and we're working with our customers to optimize energy consumption of their buildings. And so the way that we accomplish this can be a varied way of varied amount of solutions, infrastructure improvements, programming, and analytics. Um, and so I think maybe we'll go into it a little bit later, but the way that it all works is our primary solution is there's HVAC within a building, and then we're providing those control systems for the HVAC and the lighting. Um, Studies show that about 46% of energy consumption is from the HVAC and lighting within a building. So that's where we're really trying to hit home with our solutions of, okay, if we can reduce the energy consumption of that 46%, that's going to make a big difference.
Mhm.
So my role as an account executive, I like to think of myself as a liaison between the the customer, the user, and then Sycerco. So I go to the customer and I'm understanding, hey, what is it that you're trying to achieve? What are your needs? What are your goals? A lot of these are today energy related. And then from there, I'll help develop solutions and projects to obtain those goals. And so that's really what I do on a day-to-day basis.
How cool. So I heard you mention HVAC systems, and I was totally unfamiliar to what that meant before I joined BUSD. And so I'm wondering, for those who don't know, if you could kind of describe what an HVAC system is and what it does.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, of course. Sorry.
No,
You
no, great,
you end
great.
up in the industry and you start using that jargon. So I'll dive into that a little bit more. HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So any of your buildings are going to have systems in place in order to create the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. This could be anything from a central plant with boilers, chillers, cooling towers, and then down into the zone levels. So into the spaces is where you find your fan coil units, your heat pumps, your VAVs. These units are wouldn't know what to do without a building control system. So that's really where our niche is that building control system, which tells the units, the chillers, the boilers, everything what to do. So I thought maybe a good way to kind of explain that would be on a level like in your home. So people now know what the Nest is, your Google Nest. So a house will have a furnace and a thermostat, which is the Nest. And then you're able to log into your phone and say, hey, I'm feeling cold. How about we raise the heat from the phone? So we're doing the same type of thing. A full building has all of these units, and the maintenance staff, the facility staff, will need to be able to control it. So we're giving the maintenance staff a visibility and controllability from an app. It really would be a software on a computer to do that controllability.
Mm. Thank you for explaining that. I know it's an acronym, and yeah, and there's a lot of jargon that happens. So it is good to know. And yeah, I'm wondering. This might be going straight into it, but what are the first steps that a company or institution can take to track energy or minimize its use?
Mhm.
And then this is kind of a two-part question, which I can go back to the second one later. But what are the processes for assessing like system effectiveness?
Okay. All right. So I'll try to remember that. So
Yeah,
the first part was tracking it, tracking the various levels of energy. Um, so this really begins with metering. So similar to your home, I'll keep on coming back to that because I think that's easy for people to understand. A home will have a meter on it, an energy meter, and that's how PG&E knows how much energy you're using. So it's the same difference for any commercial sized building. Any of your hospitals, any of your schools, any of your high rises, they have meters, and that's how you're tracking your energy. Over time, as people have become more energy conscious, people wanted to become more granular with that information. So it's no longer just a power meter. Now you have your electrical meter, you have your lighting meter, your plug load meter, your equipment meter. So people are becoming more granular because they want to understand, where is my energy coming from? What are the big energy hogs? So that's a matter of bringing in the information. The industry has moved further from that at this point. And I mean, we all hear big data, and so we're also in the big data realm as well. And so what we like to look at is continuous monitoring. So this is a software that pulls in meter data, and using algorithms, it's able to detect anomalies. So an anomaly is some sort of outlier, something that doesn't look right. And so then we're able to dig in again. Hey, where are those energy hogs? Where's the energy coming from? And make decisions of infrastructure decisions, programming decisions, so on and so forth, on how to make a building more efficient.
Mm. And that seems like it plays such an important role in fighting climate change too. And when we think about energy use and too much energy consumption, or even um, the resources that go into producing energy.
Mhm.
So that seems like there's a direct link there as well. And I guess the second part of the question, well, you already answered kind of what are the processes for assessing system effectiveness. So I assume a lot of technology is involved in that.
Yes, yes, that it's definitely the technology has definitely changed on how to go about this. But I would say at this point where we are today, continuous monitoring is the one of the number one things that we're looking at. Prior to that, but prior to having that big data, would be a preventative maintenance routine, which is still very standard within the industry, doing an annual check, an semi-annual check where you do a review of the system. But with the technology that we have today, there's no reason not to be doing this continuously.
Hmm. And when you're doing this work, who do you partner with? Like who are you working with? I know you work with BUSD, but just curious, who are your other partners in this work?
So we're a Bay Area company, and so we work within the Bay Area everyone from commercial office, healthcare, pharmaceuticals. Uh, I'm trying not to miss any municipality, hospitality, wineries.
Lots of
Uh,
no's.
Really everything. I'm trying to think of a type of market that we don't end up supporting. So it spreads across, and um, all of the needs are very similar, but all of the needs are very different. So it's definitely very exciting to get to work with the various markets. I work personally with Berkeley Unified School District, and their needs are going to be different from the hotel or the commercial office. So just trying to come up with those unique solutions is kind of the most exciting part of my job.
How cool. And I imagine those solutions have maybe shifted, or like what you're doing has shifted since the pandemic, especially as like air and circulation has been like a need on everyone's list. I'm wondering if you can talk to like, has that shifted what you do, or is that was like already a part of what you do? Um,
Yes, yes. It was in ways part of what I do, but the goals of districts and the goals of really and any of the markets has shifted to that idea of bringing in more airflow. So ASHRAE, which now I'm forgetting the acronym, they produce guidelines on how to uh, do buildings, maintain buildings. So ASHRAE put out some guidelines on what to do in the case of COVID, and so a lot of it had to do with airflow and increasing airflow within the spaces. So we've shifted gears and really taken a look at, okay, what are ways that we can increase that? And so a lot of it has been programming changes. And so I'm putting a huge focus on that. And I've been working with a lot of the school districts on understanding what are ways that we can increase the airflow. And it's very important to make classrooms safe for the teachers and students. We want to be able to bring the teachers and students back to the class. And so this has really come down to changing the way that schedules work. So just the ons and offs. So we want to make sure that units are turning on earlier than they were before and staying on later, and then staying on throughout the day. But at the same time, making sure that we're bringing in more fresh air into the classroom, because typically we're going to be recirculating part of the air and bringing in fresh air. We no longer want to recirculate air. We're going to be bringing in more fresh air. So those are the types of things that we're looking at. It's been a huge focus change. People want to see what that looks like.
Totally. Yeah. I'm just thinking that's been like a huge topic of conversation within the district, like teachers are really nervous and how do we create more airflow? And so I'm curious, besides opening the windows, can you bring in new air through like an HVAC system, or like how does that work without opening the windows? Just
Yeah, no, absolutely. So a lot of the units that are in the classrooms, it depends on the type of unit, but a lot of the units have an economizer. And so an economizer, the way it works is it brings in fresh air from the outside. So there's actually vents on the side of a classroom that have air that is able to come in. And then there's also return air. So what we're doing as an energy efficient mode is really combining the two airs, return air and outside air, in order to bring air into a classroom. In the case of COVID, we're saying, hey, let's bring in more fresh air because we want to make sure that it's clean air. So those are the types of things that we're doing. In addition, there are other measures, and that strays away from specifically controls, but changing the filter sizes. So in each of these units, there are filters, and the level of grade and thickness that goes up. So I know that schools have been increasing the filter grades. So that's another action item that schools can take, that I know Berkeley has done. So, so there are different ways of combating COVID and making sure that the classrooms are safe, and that's our number one goal right now, and that's what I've been working with a lot of the districts with.
Interesting. Yeah, I've been asking everyone that question because it seems like no matter what sector you're working in, there has been some shift within your work, whether you work in food and ag or you work in energy management. So that's always interesting to see how people have shifted. And the next question I'm about to ask kind of goes back to what you were talking about previously about technology. But I am curious, if energy management right now is so reliant on technology, how has the field evolved over time? And yeah, how has technology like helped track energy and modernize buildings over the years? That's kind of a big question.
I will. Yeah, no, I hear you. So it is an interesting timeline on how things have shifted, because in our lifetime, we've always heard, efficiency, energy efficiency, green buildings. That's always been around in our lifetime. So it's hard to realize that, pre a certain time, that wasn't a focus. People didn't really care. And so what you saw was actually the shift began in the 1970s. I'm not going to give you a huge history lesson, but I'll just kind of go into it a little bit. Started in the 1970s. In 1978, we had a shortage of foreign oil. So we started to realize, hey, we need to come up with a way to not be so dependent on foreign oil. And so in 1978 is when the CEC, California Energy Commission, was created, and they started coming out with legislation on let's become more energy efficient. So this wasn't overnight changes. Okay, we went from never being energy efficient to now all of a sudden we're all green and everything. This was a slow process. And so after the C came out with those types of things, Title 24 legislation started coming out. And so those are regulations on the way that buildings were to become energy efficient. And so it was baby steps, I think that's when building controls, direct digital controls started. I think it was something in the 80s. Um, and so that began to progress. So when building controls first began, it was how do you turn these units on and off and how do you see them? It's just on and off. And then from there, you started to look at what else can we do? And so the idea is, hey, maybe we can't turn it off all the way, but maybe we can tone down the motors of the fan or tone down the speed of the pump. And so they developed ways in order to do that. And so that's when things really started progressing, where they realized, hey, ranges on these types of units is really where we can see energy efficiency. And so that's what we're doing today. We're trying to see, how can we ramp things down? And then how can we, within classroom, sorry, I'm starting to ramble, trying to get all the processes here now. So Title 24 keeps on coming out with different legislative items. And so today we're seeing things about occupancy levels. You're seeing things on energy demand control, ventilation, fault detection, automated demand reduction, door window switches. So those types of items, those are the types of things that Title 24 is coming out with. And so that's like the today. I think looking forward is where you're seeing more and more of that big data that I talked about, which is the continuous monitoring and making decisions based on the big data.
Thank you so much for that historical perspective. I was just doing my own research and it seemed like Title 24 kept coming up. So I really encourage people, if they want to know more about this, it seems like looking up Title 24 and like the historical advancements, specifically in California, has been really fascinating and like advanced us a lot. And I'm curious, I don't know the answer to this question, but I'm curious if other states look to Title 24 and to California, it seems like as a leader of energy conservation and management. Um,
You know what? I don't know the answer to that, but
yeah,
that would be, I mean, I know how often they're making these changes. And it's interesting. So it starts off always as a suggestion. Hey, this is what we're looking at. And people will start to make those changes and then they become law. Then it's okay. Now in the year of 2021, you need to have these items done. So these really began to transform over time. And it's moving quickly.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm sure it reduces like wasteful, unnecessary energy consumption and how much, I mean, it's just really interesting how we've gone from just turning on and off to being able to even like I have light dimmers in my kitchen and how that's so now accessible to us when just 30 years ago or however long ago it may be, that wasn't an option. So like how fast we've progressed over time, I just think is really interesting.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now it's 100% a standard. And like I said, it's hard to ignore the facts of the HVAC and the lighting make up so much of a portion of our energy consumption. So schools specifically, I think all the numbers change depending on the type of market that you're in. But schools specifically, 46% from HVAC, 30% for lighting. So you're looking at 76%. So if you, like I said earlier, if you can reduce that energy usage by even a little bit, it's making a massive, massive, massive difference. And it started off with schedules saying, okay, turn it on, turn it off. The school day starts at 7, the school day ends at 3, keep it on 7 to 3. Today, now as part of Title 24 regulations, you have occupancy sensors. So it's no longer based on a specific schedule, but it's are kids really in the classroom or not? Because if they're not, and it happens, because it's lunchtime or there's no classes at that time, the systems can either completely turn off or increase their ranges so they can temper differently during those times.
Mhm.
So it's definitely changed a lot over the course of when everything first began.
Totally, and I think these mechanisms and tools are so, so important. I'm thinking like how that also goes hand in hand with what we're doing at the district and like education campaigns and behavior changes that people can make to shut off the lights, but how important it is to like for that to go in hand with these other tools,
Oh,
which allow
cool.
us to go even further with that.
Oh, that's awesome. So you guys have some sort of like programs where you're telling the students and the teachers to do these types of actions?
Yeah, yeah. We have an energy challenge campaign, which we've done at the beginning of this school year. Yeah, it's all about behavior change and also like where our energy, what raw resources are we taking away from the environment to create energy? And yeah, so it goes from like its its creation to how we use it in the classroom, how we use it in our homes. So that's been a huge focus, like of part of my job and what I do. So it's interesting to hear, like you're on the kind of the other end of that work, um,
Absolutely.
and how I think it's super important to have both. And I think oftentimes people, when they hear the word sustainability, they kind of forget about energy, or it's definitely not the first thing that I necessarily thought of as energy management tools. I thought of like activism. I thought of something else.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important that we have people like you kind of become involved in the conversation, um, because having those systems in place is extremely important.
Absolutely. I think it's there's one big goal and a lot of ways to achieve that goal. And if everyone is doing their own little part to do it, I think it's good news for California and the world.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. And I'm kind of wondering, since when you were in college, this is not necessarily the journey that you had in mind, that you thought you were going to take. And so what advice would you give to someone who's maybe looking to accomplish what you've accomplished, but doesn't know how to begin? Or yeah, or what have you learned?
Yeah, no, you know what? The funniest thing I think is just beginning, just taking that step. Um, like I said, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But I was interested and it was something that I wanted to do. And so, in that next 9 months leading up to actually starting the job, I was looking at classes where, it wasn't part of my curriculum, but it's like, okay, that's mechanically related. Or what can I look on YouTube to start learning about the refrigeration cycle and how buildings work? If it's something that you're passionate about, there's always going to be an angle that you can take on it and really just start. It's 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 not about the education that you have. It's about kind of the drive that you want to make that difference.
I love that you said that. Thank you. I think oftentimes, no matter what goal you're trying to achieve, starting is always the hardest part. And then once you start, you gain a little bit of confidence and you can go from there. But this is kind of my last question before we close. But if someone wants to learn more about energy management, do you have any resources for how people can get involved in the kind of work that you do?
Yeah, so I was thinking I would like to start a program where we can kind of help with that type of stuff because we have a training program at our site. I would like to see where we can start to plug in high school students as we come out of COVID. It's a little bit tricky when you have everyone working from home, but plugging into our system and doing some shadowing is something that I'm trying to work with my team on doing because we work so much with the school districts of the Bay Area, that it would be really cool to start to integrate. These are the people that we're helping today, and maybe this is something that they want to do in the future. So I'd like to start an education feature of Sycerco.
I love that idea. I love that idea. And that would fit so perfectly with you guys because you probably have access already to so many school districts, as you said. So I'm sure there are students, I know there are students who would be interested in that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I would say like look up Title 24, just like start doing some Google searches. There's so much out there and so many resources.
Yeah, it's actually shocking how much that you can find. Not even shocking, but it is shocking how much you can find on the internet and really learn and really delve into it. And that's the first step is just getting to know what you want to learn about and what you want to do and then just start driving it.
Totally. Well, thanks so much for coming and volunteering your time here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.